All right, guys, some more chess drama. I know you've had a break, but today Hans Niemann filed a big lawsuit, and we're going to talk about it and break it down in this video. I found out about it on Twitter like a couple hours ago. Oliver Roeder here tweeted, and it was getting retweeted. Hans Niemann has filed a complaint against Magnus Carlsen, Chess.com, and Hikaru Nakamura in the chess cheating scandal, alleging slander, libel, and civil conspiracy. So that came out a couple hours ago. So I don't know if he had inside info that this was coming out, but then it's like, okay, that's juicy. And then Hans Niemann tweeted himself an hour ago, my lawsuit speaks for itself. And we're gonna click on this link, which breaks down the lawsuit and talk about it. So, who is involved? It says right here, the defendants, Magnus, Play Magnus Group, Danny Wrench, Chess.com, and Hikaru Nakamura. And it's being filed by Hans in Missouri. So the next question is, what's it for? It is for $100 million. Niemann seeks damages in an amount to be determined at trial, but no less than $100 million. Okay, I'm not a lawyer. I know there's a high ceiling in the US, and you're just kind of setting a benchmark. So, you say it's $100 million and they agree to settle for 50, hypothetically. I mean, you want to go for a higher number than not, I'm guessing. It also stands out more in media, etc. So $100 million bucks. That's how much it's for. And then for people like me who aren't like lawyers or maybe just too familiar with the terms, let's break down the terms specifically. So what is he asserting? Slander, libel, and let's say civil conspiracy. It says here. I mean, 3 and 4 and 5 look like the same. So let's go by the book definition so we're all on the same page. Slander, oral defamation in which someone tells one or more persons an untruth about another, which untruth will harm the reputation of the person defamed. Slander is a civil wrong and can be the basis for a lawsuit. So I think the key thing there is oral, like let's say defamation, slander, they're all defamation, they're all in the same category, but it's oral defamation, so saying it verbally. I think that's what oral means. That's what slander is. Then we have libel. To publish in print, writing, or broadcast through radio, television, or film an untruth about another which will do harm to that person or his or her reputation by tending to bring the target into ridicule, hatred, scorn, or contempt of others. So libel seems like published through whichever medium. There's a lot of ways, mediums these days through social media. But we got the verbal, and then we have published. And then I couldn't find civil conspiracy on this website, so we're just going to go by wiki. A civil conspiracy is a form of conspiracy involving an agreement between two or more parties to deprive a third party of legal rights or deceive a third party to obtain an illegal objective. It's a form of collusion already. So just based off of that, you can see like they're grouping everybody together. Play Magnus, which just recently Chess.com offered to purchase them. They're going to, trying to make that happen right now. Then you have Danny as part of Chess.com, Hikaru, probably an extension, Magnus, an extension of Play Magnus. So that's where the civil conspiracy, where it makes sense. So those are the three definitions there. And this is a 44-page filing. You can look at it on your own, enjoy. I don't want to I'm not an expert. I'm not going to break all of it down. But what they talk about in this filing is everybody named, including Hans, their background, what they do. And then there's what they actually did to harm Hans. And then also Hans's relation to chess, how much he makes, how he grew up, blah, blah, blah. So we can look at a few categories there. Let's say the segment on Hikaru, because he was named directly. So they talk about Hikaru's influence, his chess level. And then there's a couple maybe more juicy parts. As Chess.com's most prolific online personality, Nakamura has a well-documented history of abusing his leverage with Chess.com to blacklist competitors, accuse players of cheating, and damage the careers of up-and-coming chess players. Nakamura has also had an acrimonious relationship with Niemann for several years, dating back to when they both worked as streamers for chess.com, and Nakamura viewed Niemann as a threat to his dominance on chess streaming platforms. So that part's not like hard to verify, in the sense that, like, yeah, Hikaru, has he accused some people, or if you're on his bad side, does he have leverage with chess.com? Does he have the most say? Absolutely. If you're not familiar with it, you can actually Google it, but like, that's not a controversial statement. I don't know about the Hikaru Niemann streaming competition. Like, technically everybody who streams is a competitor with each other, so I would need to know maybe more instances where they butted heads. Because yeah, you can technically view anyone as a threat, but why specifically Hans? I'm curious about that. But yeah, if you get on Naka's bad side, or he's, Title Tuesday, he sometimes, reacted badly to losses or accused people of cheating. Yeah, he has done that. He's a lot more tame these days, but again, I guess what really matters is the context of Naka and Hans, because, lots of people. I guess part of the reason why Hikaru is involved in this is they're saying Hikaru has a leverage with chess.com, and that he's grouped in because he is, they're pushing him, and he has more say in things, and who to work with and stuff like that. He's a much more direct relationship than most streamers, or has much more influence. So there's a Hikaru segment about that. Chess.com was named. If we go back here, and they just talk about chess.com, their site, how many people use it, and then pretty much paint a picture like, hey, chess.com is the biggest website in chess, a lot of members, but they have a lot of influence, not just in online chess, but because of their connections and agreements and everything. Like, they have a lot of influence in just the overall world of chess, and that can extend to tournaments, over the board tournaments, reputation, invites, stuff like that. Danny was named. So for one thing I want to mention is, am I surprised by the people named? No, because Hans named these people in his interview at the Sinkfield Cup. He specifically named Hikaru. He specifically named Magnus. He specifically mentioned chess.com, and he also mentioned Danny. He had mentioned meeting a chess.com executive, and I think he's referring to Danny. And then they had Danny was the chess.com executive was being nice. I mean, there must have been something there that they've had some private discussions, and then after what Danny said more recently on Twitter and stuff, that rubbed Hans the wrong way, which is why he went for chess.com and Danny. Yeah, probably has to do with his invite being rescinded, but anyways, there's that. There's not a big part about Danny, just chief chess officer, which is a cool title. But they just say international master, which is one level below GM, executive, and public face. It's a very brief part. It's mainly on chess.com, play Magnus, Hikaru, stuff like that. Let's go to the Magnus segment. Yeah, so one thing that I noticed is in the filing, they disagree with a lot of the statements made. They disagree about Hans lying about how much he cheated, for example. So if we scroll to that, chess.com and wrenches above statement is false. This is in response to Danny's chess community letter that he posted, if you remember. This filing is disputing that. Niemann did not lie about the amount and seriousness of cheating on chess.com. That's what they actually say explicitly. They're saying no, the one thing there is in Hans's interview, when he, let's say, admitted to some instances, it was vague, it was hard to define, and it definitely was mixed signals, Like, is it how many games, how many instances? Is an instant defined as like a day? You know, like, is someone cheating? If someone has cheated 10 times, is that 10 different instances? Let's say 10 different chess sessions. Or if you had one session where you played 10 games and you cheated all of them, is that 10 times? Like, I don't know. There's some stuff there, but they're disputing that statement. They're disputing that statement. And if you're disputing that statement, then you are 100% disputing or taking issue with the Wall Street Journal article that mentioned about 100 times, right? So they're disputing, it sounds like, most of chess.com's comments, just straight up. Now, an interesting part here is $100 million. You can throw out whatever number, but you want to describe how, you've suffered. And there's a bit about that in page 36 here, where it's like, so after everything happened, Hans was supposed to have a match against German number one, Vincent Keimer, in Germany. Apparently the match was like canceled after the accusations came out by Keimer. And then Tata Steel, Hans says here, or they say that he was in negotiations to play. The negotiations stopped as soon as this incident happened. So that's already a couple tournaments that, hey, maybe he was going to play, he didn't get to play. And then there's, in terms of the collusion, civil conspiracy part, it's like, hey, on top of that, Carlsen refuses to participate in tournaments that invite Hans. And then chess.com's banning Hans. This is what it says here. So that he's losing a bunch of events. So most chess tournaments are private. Outside of the FIDE World Championship events, stuff like that, there's open events, but a lot of the top events are private. That means invite only. And the invite can be based on whatever. It can be based on rating. It can be because you like the guy. And there's often just a small group of players that get invited repeatedly. And then there's usually one or two wildcards, outsiders, etc. But like, it's a pretty small group. It's pretty hard to secure an invite. And it's not always merit-based. It's not a requirement whatsoever. Chess is very like traditional in that sense. So they mention instances in how Hans has suffered since all this came out. And in a typical year, Niemann can expect to play 15 events, ranging between 5 and 15K per event. And then, other benefits of playing those events, like improving in chess. So opportunity cost is mentioned there, both by tournament invites and also like loss of income. Again, I don't think you'll find any chess player who can make 100 million, but for lawsuits, I guess you can just put whatever you want, and it sets a benchmark, and why not go for as high as possible, I guess. So pretty much we got the people named, how they colluded potentially, or their conflict of interest, how they're connected with each other. There's also a segment here, page 30, where it's like defending Hans from the public. And that was the chief arbiter of Singfield Cup. Kenneth Reagan was mentioned here. Tony Rich. So they brought in some St. Louis references. They talked about Kenneth Reagan's model, someone else running chess analytics, that are all suggesting, we don't see any indication Hans cheated. So bring out, some of those references. Another thing that was interesting is Hikaru was mentioned a lot more than that other statement. There's another part where the defamation continues, right here. Defendants continue to defame Niemann, and that's like after the event. Oh yeah, they also reference Elon Musk, The Late Show, and all the potential reach in the world. How many people possibly could have viewed something related to this cheating scandal, which kind of establishes, let's say, hey, 2 billion people in the world have glanced or heard of, let's say, the chess cheating scandal. Not 2 billion, but let's say 1 billion. Then you can maybe like extrapolate from that, like, hey, that's 1 billion people that could potentially have a bad opinion of me because of this. So that's a lot, and that should be priced as a lot. So they're giving numbers there. Elon Musk's followers, Stephen Colbert's viewers, etc. They mentioned here, I noticed that there was references to like a lot of Hikaru's stream. Like right here, page 29. Same day Hikaru reacted to a Vice article. Hikaru further stated, And then in the same streaming video, Naka went on to state, you know what the million, blah, blah, blah. So there are they're referencing a lot of Hikaru's streams in terms of continuing the defamation. So yeah, 44 pages. That's just a little bit about it. Am I missing anything? Anything too juicy? I haven't read all of it at all. But am I surprised there's a lawsuit? No. Am I surprised by who was named in it? No. They were all named in that interview where Hans was naming people. And legally, I have no idea. Like when I read stuff like that, like, you know, is it hard to prove? I assume it's hard to prove. I got the impression that a lot of like the tweets that we were seeing on Twitter were lawyer proofread, that like Magnus or chess.com or Hans or whatever, people were not speaking too freely after this came out, not the lawsuit but the scandal, because there always is the risk of that. Like that, I can say for sure that everybody involved, even myself, like was, you know, people were like, yeah, there could be a lawsuit coming out. Like that's always a possibility in cases like that, like this. So no surprise there. Yeah, they even mentioned here, we just played in Europe. I just played in Austria. There was a GM there who had previously been caught for cheating, and he was playing the event, right? No repercussions. He served his time. And they're mentioning that, you know, like Hans doesn't get that same treatment, even though he hasn't been like officially banned. Oh yeah, before I forget, I noticed here that there's some other PDFs available in terms of the filing, and they sent letters to all the defendants, and it says in each letter that the defendant has 21 days to respond. So we should be hearing back within the next few weeks. So yeah, that's what happened today, and I'm curious in the comments, what do you think of the lawsuit? Do you think they're gonna pay up something? Do you think, you know, just what do you think? Most of us aren't lawyers, but we're all entitled to an opinion, and whose side are you on? Till next time, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to sub to our channel. We're trying to get to 300K, and we appreciate the support.